Peace, y'all. So this is Star with the Star Blooms. I actually am excited about this message. Um, 515, I'm trying to figure out how do I want to share it because for me it was like complex. I got it over like 3 different days, and I've basically just been sitting and like digesting it because normally the way that I would share it would be one way, but the way that I'm perceiving it, the more I sit within it, it changes and it transforms for me to mean so much more than what I'd originally perceived it to mean. Confirmation, excuse me, y'all. So what I've been sitting with is the sisters that live within self doubt, which are denial and fear. Now, it's been so interesting how spirit has been giving me words that are sitting within this rate of karmic energy. But self doubt is a 14-5, y'all. And the thing that's interesting about this energy that I've been able to sit with and come to an understanding of is the 14-5 normally, not normally, because there's so many words and there's so many different ways that words can be perceived based on whatever level that you're at with them, right? But with me dealing with the inner child and recognizing how if you haven't shown up at a rate within retrieving yourself, retrieving energy, um, that you've allowed to sit dormant within yourself without gaining a certain rate of emotional intelligence, how you've been maybe forced to be in different positions based off of your way of living within your subconscious and not allowing yourself to realign and reframe, you don't really have the egress that most beings have in their being, because there's a lot of blockages that are perceived based off of anchors that you've placed up in your way of being in the conditioning of self, right? Self is like a 15-6. The reason why self is so important is that it's an identifier that causes the shift within the whole sum. It's not just something that comes in a desire to be a part of the family. It has to individualize itself to alter, change, cultivate, bring knowledge to the vision of what it is. It's basically that rate of all of us being in this position to where we get to add to, this huge, huge puzzle without actually knowing what piece we carry until we allow ourselves to revolve in the space that we are, embodying, that is truthful for us, right? When I first seen the words self doubt, denial, and fear, I just put them as 14-5. Denial is 18-9, and fear is 21-3, because I felt like the sisters sat beside self doubt, like they were like roommates, and spirit's like, mm-mm. They live within. Denial lives within the one. The one had to come in order for it to recognize eight, but yet it was calling itself to transform. And when you're dealing with the one and the eight, you're in a very unique space because there's a harvest there in that eight. But what the denial is doing is it's convincing the one not to be itself, and it's choosing the rate of transition instead of transformation. The four being that founding space is very, very unique for fear to sit in, because instead of the foundation that the one should naturally come with, not necessarily in a rate of it starts with the foundation, but to have a seed and then to plant it and to allow it to grow roots is a good thing. But when you think about fear sitting at the four, representing the 14-5 and self-doubt, you're having a space that is extremely intuitive. It knows that denial came in the one, right? And because denial came in the one, it's going to convince the two of its knowing and awareness that it really can't communicate to the foundation, which is the four, that the shift that needs to occur is going to happen. This rate of experience within these three sisters that live within each other is basically a cause to change, to transform communication within. The internal war of unspoken intellect felt through emo, right? The question that I asked Spirit first was how to transform this way of self conditioning, right? I recognize in so many rates of how I've healed that I've basically been going back into my subconscious to rewire and reframe different layers of embodiment. And with the rate of self, it could be confusing, especially if we haven't gained the rate of, spiritual maturity or just individual maturity. Um, I asked, how do we basically overcome something that's such a big body? You're not just dealing with self doubt, you're dealing with the self eliminated space that lives with the denial that kills the rate of abundance that could be received before it even allows itself to transition into something that could be stabilized. And fear that only comes because doubt arrived. It's the thing that says, well, doubt has to be real because denial said so. It's that, intuitive space that is very childish because it doesn't allow itself to be whole in what it knows itself to truly be, but it has to confirm the one that's present within the eight that sits within the nine of the now, right? And then if you recognize how to get out of these spaces is something that is eliminating all three, all right, which is trust, okay? Trust and doubt are, I don't know, no, they're not. I was about to say trust and doubt are not, but they're not the same. Trust is the opposite of doubt, I believe, right? And the reason why I believe it's so unique is because it's a step above, but it's not above, it's below. If that makes sense. Trust is a 17-8. This is basically um, a direct submission to the fact that you're on your spiritual path, receiving your abundance. This isn't something that we all sit in, trust. It isn't something that we're all called to sit in either, right? Um, but when you're at a rate to where you recognize that you get to trust the self and relinquish the rates of doubt. Oh, doubt is, my apologies, y'all. Doubt is a 17-8, right? And then trust is a 17-8. And the reason why I believe that they're amazing is because they both represent the same numerology, but they are not the same. One is above, one is below. They sit in this rate of duality because they're trying to convince you to move away from the truth, which is a 24-6, which is basically the true degree that gets trapped, all right, within you. I asked Spirit, how do we basically acknowledge the rate of inner child healing when it comes to self-doubt? It was hilarious because all of the messages that I wrote down and channeled, trust came out again. Trust. Trusting yourself to take the steps forward needed in order for you to basically know that what you know and you've acquired through wisdom and through experience, you aren't just existing in. And then the other thing is friendship. Recognize that when you're dealing with certain race of mental torment, there are friends that live in that space that have to support the lie in order for you to maintain the conditioning that allows you to be seated in the thing that isn't of you. All right. And then I asked Spirit, well, what is the now teaching the inner child? The now is teaching the inner child about the rate of transition. And when I processed that and I was shuffling the cards, ancestors came out. And I thought that was extremely magnificent because when you're dealing with such a high rate of needing to address certain traumas, to remove and delete, cancel, revoke contracts, okay, with certain things, you will recognize, oh, these were from before. This is a past life. This is the blood. This is the ancestors.